Could I have stumbled upon the cheapest 10 by 10 camping and bushcrafting tarp ever? I don't know. Let's check it out. Okay, y'all know how I like finding inexpensive bushcrafting and camping stuff, such as all of the stuff that I find and dig up at the Dollar Tree. I love everything's a dollar. You can find some treasures at the Dollar Tree. But there's a difference between cheap and inexpensive. Inexpensive, it doesn't really cost that much. Cheap is cheap. Now, this tarp, it is inexpensive and it is cheap. but and it is a 10 by 10 nylon tarp, and I got it for $19.99 shipped on eBay, and it's still $19.99. So it's still available on eBay right now, this very tarp. It's an inexpensive, cheap tarp, and we're going to go over that in a minute. There's some things that I like about it. There's some things that I don't like about it. I think that I can make it work for what I want to do, but let's get into the likes and dislikes right now. Okay, one of the things that I really like about this tarp is its size. You can see that it's kind of a square, flat shape. It doesn't have the roll up that some of the more expensive tarps have, but this tarp is pretty small, and it comes in at just about 10 inches long by about 8 inches wide, and our thickness, if you compress it, it's about 2 inches compressed. So it comes in at a really handy size. It's got a nice drawstring closure, so it keeps it closed. It's got the nice string nut, and it's got a nice bag. You can see the bag is even foil insulated on the side, and it folds up, very nicely, and really is really easy because it's nylon, slides really easily, fits into its bag very nicely. Those are a couple of things that I like about that: the size, the shape, also this. You'll recognize this as my new Nessmuck pack setup. I'm setting it up right now with the double canteen pouches on the sides, and here is our tarp. Watch. It fits perfectly in the Nessmuck pack. So now I have a way to carry a full-size 10 by 10 tarp shelter, camping tarp shelter. Can keep you out of the rain, the wind, the cold, the sleet, the snow, the hail, just like a postman. I got a great way to carry a 10 by 10 tarp in my Nessmuck pack without having to roll it up and attach it to the bottom of the pack. I can put it right in the main body of the pack. Okay, let's look at a couple other cool things. Okay, a couple of the things that I really like on our cheap tarp is nice green nylon on the outside, but on the inside it's our nice silver reflective material. That helps a lot in the colder weather if you need to reflect some convective heat back down to your sleeping pad or whatever, So nice reflective stuff on the inside, nice smooth green nylon on the outside. Another thing that I really like is on every corner it's got these pockets where the straps loops are sewed in, and they're double sewn, okay, but there's a pocket. So if you need to prop these up with a stick or something, or a pole, you always have a pocket. The corners are pretty reinforced. One thing that I don't like is these loops are not that big. I mean, I can barely get my thumb through it. So you're not going to use it with a big stick or a big stake, which is why I've got these pieces of it's not paracord, it's the rope that came with the tarp, and they're really cheap. It's not paracord, but I've just tied them in there as in a bowline, and I've got these nice little guy lines that are already tied into the loops if I need them. But nice pockets, nice double reinforced corners, nice shiny silver underside. Let's look at another thing that I really like. Okay, we're up here now at the center line of the tarp. Another thing that I really like is This tarp has a solid double stitched seam through the entire middle of it. I mean, it's got a nice seam, and it kind of really helps to index where you are in the tarp. So it's got a nice double sewn seam. It's got another loop, and I've just got on the places that I need them. This is kind of a pressing loop that I can attach to a pressing and draw the tarp tight if I need to. But it's got these loops, and I think that you need some additional alternative loops, because these loops are not really very big. I mean, I can barely get my thumb through them, but it's got a nice center seam, a nice double stitch center seam running all the way down the center. So that's pretty nice. Okay, something that I don't like about the tarp is it only has 3 tie out points per side, such as there's a tie out point on the corner, there's a tie out point in the middle, and there's a tie out point in the end. This is not like a DD tarp that has 100 different tie out points. It has 3, and that's it. So you're kind of limited on what type of tarp configurations that you can do. But well, I'll tell you what I've done is, I've gone out from each end of the tie out point, and I've measured halfway between the top, because there's a tie out point up there, and I measured halfway between the top and the bottom, and I put a mark with a Sharpie on virtually every halfway point. On the other edge, here's the halfway point. I put a mark. Up halfway on this seam, there's a mark. Halfway on the top seam, there's a mark. Here is the middle, and I put a Sharpie mark. Down here, I put another mark. There's a tie out point, and so on and so on. I've done that because if I want to set up some of the cooler configurations, like using a DD tarp that has like 18 tie out points or something like that, I'm going to need to use these tarp clips, okay? And get the ones with the little jaws that you can tighten with the screw on the top, not the ones with the little slide out mechanism. And all I've done here is I just lark's headed on about a 5 or 6 inch paracord loop, so that when I attach these, I can either put a stake through the hole in the tarp clip, or I can put the stake through, depending on the configuration, I can just put the stake through the paracord loop. So I'm going to have to carry along, you know, half a dozen, 7 or 8 tarp clips to make a lot of really cool configurations. So that's one way to get around it. Now I could eliminate the tarp clips by buying a more expensive tarp that had more tie out points, yada yada yada, but hey, I wanted to go the cheap way, not the easy way. So here you go. That's one of the major drawbacks of this tarp, is it doesn't have a ton of tie out points. You're gonna have to use tarp clips. Okay, other than that, our cheap 10x10 tarp is really not a bad option. It's not going to be really as rugged, and it's not going to hold up to a lot of rough use that the DD tarps or the more expensive tarps would. But I think for my light duty use in Florida, and this was going to be mainly to keep the sun off me and to keep a little bit of light rain, maybe a thunderstorm rain off me. It's not going to be as much of a cold weather tarp because, you know, we don't really have cold weather down here. So these are still available for the ungodly price of $20 on eBay. And I just made just a couple of the modifications that I've shown you to take an inexpensive, cheap tarp and make it into something useful. I hope you like my video on inexpensive bushcraft tarps. And this is Matt the Old Floor Boy, and I will see you on the trail. Okay, y'all know how I love... Jeez. Okay, y'all know how I love cheap stuff. And I get most of my cheap stuff at the cheap store out of... Okay, that's a look at my cheap... Okay, here's a look at my cheap tarp that I... God, why don't you shut up over... Jeez. Gumtree and Harbor Freight. I love saving money. In my opinion, there's way too expensive stuff out there. So I don't like any of that.